deservedly so. One has to emphasise again that some of their football and teamwork has lit up North London this winter. They did the hard part in the first half here and went on to clinch a victory which certainly entertained a large crowd, with Martin Hayes outstanding. As for Nottingham Forest, well, had they scored from the penalty, it might have been different. But unless they can perform a mini-miracle in the Championship, it rather looks as though Brian Clough and his team will finish the season empty-handed as far as trophies go for the 7th year running. But Arsenal, who are now unbeaten for 22 matches, go marching on.
Yes, Arsenal's confident form remains, and they join Liverpool in tomorrow's semi-final draw. Well, the backlog of FA Cup ties was still being cleared this evening. 4 ties completed tonight. Here are the details. Newcastle 2, Northampton Town 1. Goddard put Newcastle in front after 2 minutes. Richard Hill equalised in the 66th, but a minute later, Andy Thomas put Newcastle through to that 4th round meeting with Preston. And among the replays, Brighton and Hove Albion 1, Sheffield United 2. Peter Withe got the winner for United, who are now away to Orient or West Ham. Chelsea 2, Aston Villa 1. Gordon Jury got an equaliser for Chelsea just 7 minutes from time. And then in extra time, Mickey Hazard's penalty got Chelsea that away trip to Watford. And Huddersfield Town 2, Norwich City 4. Comfortable for Norwich, who are now away to Wigan, but they did have Wayne Biggins sent off. And in the Freight Rover Trophy first round, Carlisle United 1, Preston North End 2, Chester City 1, Lincoln City 1, that after extra time. Chester won it 5-4 on penalties, and Halifax Town 1, Middlesbrough 2. And in the Scottish League Premier Division, Aberdeen 2, Heart of Midlothian 1. Aberdeen's Peter Weir carried off after 11 minutes. Hearts' Roddy MacDonald sent off 7 minutes later. Celtic 1, Hibernia 0, the goal from Anton Rogan after 64 minutes, and that means that Celtic go back on top. And in Division 1, Morton 2, Queen of the South 0. Scottish FA Cup second round, Stirling Albion 0, Meadowbank 1, and in the replay, Ayr United 2, Stranraer 0. Well, the Spanish league season has continued unimpeded by the weather, and the progress of Barcelona at the top of the table is also uninterrupted after Saturday's 4-1 win over Athletic Bilbao. Goals by Gary Lineker and Mark Hughes helped set up the victory, the first by Lineker after the Bilbao defence was caught out by Carrasco. That was after 17 minutes. 4 minutes later, it was Carrasco himself, a swift and very precise free kick. Well, Bilbao, 4th in the Spanish league, were really being torn apart by Barcelona. Lineker involved in this build-up, and coming up here, a really delightful ball by Hughes to Calderé, and then great work by Biran in the Bilbao goal, saving twice, but Hughes on hand for the loose ball, and that was 3-0. And then midway through the second half, Iturbi pulled a goal back for Bilbao, but number 4 for Barcelona wasn't far away. Bilbao punished for failing to clear, and Fernandez the scorer. Barcelona stayed 2 points clear of Real Madrid at the top of the Spanish First Division. 3 rugby league results for you this evening. 2 from the Challenge Cup preliminary round. Wins there for Heworth, the amateurs, and St Helens over Swinton. And in the Stones Bidder Championship, a convincing victory for Widnes, 44-10 over Oldham. Right, before we go on to winter sports and motor racing, quick word about Sports Night next week. And it's a very important night indeed for Leicester's Chris Pyatt as he makes his first defence of the European light middleweight title. Title he won last September, showing the kind of power that has long since marked him down as an outstanding talent.
So Pyatt seizing his chance here, that'll do, left hand. What a tremendous swinging left that was. He'll never go on from that, and neither should he be allowed to. He's up at 8, all over, counted out on his feet. All over in 1 minute and 38 seconds, I make it. A tremendous win for Chris Pyatt.
Well, that's the Pyatt power. It's a tough defence for him, though, in Sports Night next week. The challenger, Gianfranco Rossi, and the fight in front of Rossi's home crowd in Perugia in Italy. Also next week, international snooker, the Masters from Wembley, and the match that night will be between former world champion Dennis Taylor and UK runner-up Neil Foulds, all on BBC1 at 10:25. Well, high hopes last year that Britain's next Formula One world champion wouldn't be too far away. Nigel Mansell's brave effort was halted in the very last Grand Prix, but he'll be among the favourites when the new season starts in Brazil in April. But what of Britain's challenge into the 90s? It's still clear that we're producing the talent, if only the financial support could be found. And tonight in London, the award for Britain's most promising young racing driver was announced at the 1987 Cellnet Awards. The Hilton Hotel in Park Lane was the venue for tonight's awards ceremony. They used to be called the Grovewood Awards when the winners included Derek Bell, James Hunt and Martin Brundle. Nigel Mansell was there tonight as a past winner, and so too was Britain's Derek Warwick. Murray Walker set about revealing the identity of this year's Cellnet Award winner.
Now, to present this notable award, a double past Grovewood Award winner himself, BBC television sports personality of 1986, Nigel Mansell.
Thank you very much, Murray. The winner of the Premier Award is Martin Donnelly.
First of all, let me begin by saying that I am overwhelmed at winning this award. Going as far as the nomination stage was an honour in itself, and to be chosen as the winner by such a renowned panel of judges is quite honestly a dream.
Martin Donnelly, 22 years old from Northern Ireland, took a fine third place in the British Championship in his first season in Formula 3. Martin comes from a background steeped in motorsport. Just up the road from his Leicestershire racing base is the Donington Racing Museum, packed with the kind of Formula One cars that represent the real top level of the sport. I wondered if Formula One for him was a realistic goal.
Certainly at this stage, as we go into the 87 season, it's within my grasp. It's just up to me to make the best of the opportunity. Have you had asked me that question 3 or 4 years ago, I would have said to come to England and drive in Formula 3 was my ambition. But certainly it'd be nice to come back here in 3 or 4 years' time and see a model or a replica that I once drove in Formula 1.
Tell us exactly how you started in the sport. What was your earliest racing experience?
My earliest was, well, I suppose, when I was a toddler. My father, who was a club racer, brought me to the circuits and carried me about the place and the noise and everything else. But really I didn't have a lot of say in the matter, because when I was born and in the hospital, the first gift I got was a Ferrari Dino. It was stuck into the fist. So
Toy one, I assume.
A toy one, yeah. So obviously I didn't have a lot of say in the matter.
Like so many other young drivers, Formula Ford was his competitive entry into the sport. His first impact on television, and it really was an impact, was in winning the 1984 Grandstand Trophy.
I was fortunate enough to lead the early part of the race, and then I had a coming together with a back marker and wiped the front nose of the car. I thought, oh, this is how I've blown it. But I was fortunate enough to hold on to the end and beat Andy Wallace, who won the championship, the Formula 3 championship last year.
All through his career, Martin's car carried the name of Frank Nolan, the Northern Ireland businessman who'd sponsored him from the start. But it was the financial support of Swallow Racing that rescued Martin when Frank sadly died in April.
Certainly, Frank Nolan was the biggest thing that ever happened to me. If it wasn't for Frank Nolan, I don't think I'd be in England racing on a full-time basis. Frank just really grabbed me by the scruff of the neck and took me out of Ireland and placed me in England, and never wavered in his support. Just really one of the great sponsors that anyone could ever wish to have. Unfortunately, he died earlier last year, and it's just a shame that he wasn't around to see how we've progressed.
This is the position that Martin Donnelly would like to find himself in for the start of the Formula 3 season, but the death of his long-time sponsor and the tight finances of the sport means there's no guaranteed drive.
This early part in my career, the Formula 3, really is about trying to gather a competitive budget. Talent at this stage plays a very minor role. It's good to win races, but it's a sad fact of the case that Formula 3 is all about who can get the budgets gathered together and get out there and do the business. And unfortunately, I'm struggling a bit.
So at the moment, at least, you're a businessman first and a racing driver second.
Yeah, at this stage.
I'm sure that Martin's reasons, or the reasons why he hasn't tied up his deal for 87, will definitely be helped by tonight, because it's a prestigious award. It adds a lot of prestige to the team that chooses Martin to drive for them, and I don't see any problem with him getting a drive in a top team or in the top team, which is what he's looking for.
James, I know it'll probably seem light years ago to you, but you won one of these awards. What's it going to mean to Martin Donnelly?
Well, I think it's going to mean a lot of prestige for him. It's going to help him get sponsorship. The cash won't be a bad thing. I mean, when I won it, the cash paid off the overdraft that I'd got, so that was pretty good and very, very handy. And of course, it's encouragement, which is most important for confidence at this stage of the career. You know, he's doing very well, and as he said in his speech, he still has a long way to go. But this sort of thing makes you feel that what you've done so far is worthwhile.
Let's hope that Martin can get the support he needs with that new British Formula 3 season, just about 6 weeks away. Well, one sport that Britain is getting to grips with, despite all the lack of facilities and finance, is bobsleighing. And there was a fine all-round team performance in the World Championships that have just finished in St. Moritz. We're going to see how the four-man bob competition was decided. But before the final round, the competitors were given a really sharp reminder that this is a very dangerous sport indeed. The reminder came with a bad crash involving the Austrian bob, which entered the notorious horseshoe too high, the result being a crash, and then it overturned and was clearly out of control. And there really is no more frustratingly helpless sight in the sport, because the bob can only career to the end of the run. There are no means of stopping it. Worst injuries were suffered by the driver, Ingo Appelt, who was trapped at the front. There are amazingly just bumps and bruises for the rest of the crew, but Appelt is recovering in hospital from rather serious head injuries. Well, that happened in the third run, and this is how the leading positions stood after that run. Switzerland 2, with driver Hans Hildebrand, led the competition, but East Germany 1 had cut their lead to just 0.31 of a second. Switzerland 1 were third, and Great Britain 1, led by Nick Phipps, well, they were a rather disappointing 8th before the final run. So, we join our commentator, Tony Gubber.
Anton Fischer in West Germany 2, just over half a second off the bronze medal place, in fourth position with this final descent now. 5.11 his push start. So neither of his two runs today have been as quick as he was on the first day of competition. The tendency with these sleds is for the nose to keep wanting to go up and the driver all the time trying to pull it back down, but not too soon, as possibly the Austrian Appelt did when he suffered the crash earlier. One minute, 6.2 seconds. Total time, 4 minutes, 24.52 for Fischer. And that will probably not be good enough to move him into the medal positions. Silver medal last weekend. What here for Hans Hildebrand, who led at the halfway stage and still leads going into this final run. Gets away in 5.11 seconds, the second quickest push start of this fourth descent. But he saw his lead eroded after the third run here earlier today, and will know that he can't allow too much time to elapse. And the crew behind him really tucking down tight. Fastest man at this stage. He'll go through the clock, 134 kilometers. Just over 83 miles an hour for Hildebrand. Well, he did a time of 1 minute 5.3 on his first run in this competition, and it's another 1 minute and 5 seconds, this time 5.96. First place in 4 minutes 22 seconds then for Hildebrand. The other sleds have got to come down, but they really will have to improve dramatically if they're to dislodge him from top spot. And Wolfgang Hoppe in East Germany 1 will know that he's got to improve on Hildebrand's time by just over 4/10 of a second if he's to improve from second place, which he occupies at the start of this fourth and final run. 28.63, only fourth quickest at that stage. Through Tree and Shamrock, the speed picking up all the time. Awkward little kink through the Dyke, then Tree, and a short straight before they flash under bridge. 134.9, so he's been really quick, 84 miles an hour plus. 1 minute 5.81. Well, Hoppy's given it a good shot, but that's not quick enough. That'll keep him in second place, in silver medal position though. But that doesn't challenge Hilterbrand's gold. Ralph Pickler in Switzerland 1 was a full second behind his teammate Hilterbrand after the third run, and there's no way that he can make up that sort of time here. But that's a really quick start, 5.08. That's the quickest start we've seen, so he's giving it every go, is Pickler. But it really would be remarkable if he could shave a full second off the time achieved by Hilterbrand. Four heads of the crew, not quite in as good alignment as we saw from these Germans who came down earlier. .5, that's just 83 miles an hour, so he's a little bit slower, and that's reflected in the finishing time. 1 minute 6.7 seconds, 4 minutes 23.76, but good enough for third place and the bronze medals. So still 8. A little bit disappointing, I think, for Nick Phipps, who was trying desperately to improve on that on his third run, and now this fourth and final descent. 5.13 seconds. Well, that's the 7th quickest so far. So Bob Thorne, another former decathlete, Alan Cairns and Sammy Lyons have got Phipps away to a fairly good start, and now it depends on what this 34-year-old former English international decathlete can achieve on this drive. His final run in this four-man competition. Well, it's a good run, 52.3, fourth quickest of this fourth descent, 133.3. Again, it's about 83 miles an hour as Lyons breaks. And 1 minute 6.15. What a good time that is by Nick Phipps. And that has moved the British crew up into 6th place. And already they're out of the sled, looking at the clock and starting to celebrate. And so confirmation of another terrific British performance, finishing 6th. Switzerland 2 taking the gold. East Germany won the silver and Switzerland won the bronze. But for the second week running, a British bobsleigh crew finishes 6th in world competition.
Well, the attention turns back to the skiers next as Ski Sunday brings you the dramatic Kitzbühel event, another tough warm-up for next week's World Championships in Crans-Montana. That's Ski Sunday, 5:45 on BBC2. Right, the night's Cup headlines. In the Little Woods Cup, Ian Rush's late goal gives Liverpool victory over Everton, but Liverpool lose Jim Beglin with a broken leg. Charlie Nicholas is on target for Arsenal as they go through against Nottingham Forest. In the FA Cup, Mick Hazard's controversial extra-time penalty for Chelsea knocks out Aston Villa. And Paul Goddard sets Newcastle on their way with a second-minute goal against Northampton. In Scotland, Celtic go back on top of the Premier Division tonight after a 1-0 win against Hibernian. And in boxing, 33-year-old lightweight Pat Cowdell comes back after 8 months' absence, and he beats Mike Dervan over 10 rounds at Solihull. Well, a reminder that in just about 3 hours' time, under the floodlights at Sydney, England's cricketers will be starting their third match in the one-day World Series Cup. Australia are the opponents, and you can see highlights at 10:10 p.m. That's tomorrow, Thursday evening. The series interestingly poised with one win apiece for all three sides. But here in Britain, the draw for the semi-finals of the Little Woods Cup will be made tomorrow. We know 2 of the semi-finalists, and we also know the kind of form they're in. Good night.
Rush. Johnson coming behind. Walsh trying to hold it up for Rush. Came off Gary Stevens. Rush!
Hayes Nicholas. Hayes again. Hayes is through! Oh, that's a lovely goal!
There are 4 FA Cup finals on BBC videos, 1964, 66, 77 and 79, and they're available now. And we kick off tomorrow evening's programmes at 7 o'clock with Top of the Pops with Gary Davis and Steve Wright. And at 7:30 the regulars at the Queen Vic look forward to a knees up at the pub's sing-along a Wixie night as Den considers his future in EastEnders. Tomorrow's World at 8 o'clock is a NASA special which looks at the space race and the goal of putting a man on Mars in the 1990s. At 8:30 it's a question of sport, and this week's guests are Ian Woosnam, Jonathan Davis, Jan Molby and Jimmy White. After the 9 o'clock news, in Bread at 9:30 the Boswell family stick together to fight unemployment. And that might be an issue in Question Time, introduced by Sue Lawley at 10. And her guests are Lady Grimmond, Roy Hattersley, Dennis Potter and William Waldegrave. And finally Matt Houston goes after the killer of 2 top athletes at 11 o'clock. Programmes for Thursday night here on BBC1. Now let's have a look at the weather. It'll be a very foggy night with the densest patches over the southeast, but in all possible Jersey temperatures will stay above freezing. On Thursday morning, dense patches of fog with visibility less than 50 yards will clear only slowly and may again linger all day over the snowfields of East Anglia and the southeast. In eastern Scotland and western parts of England and Wales, it'll become a little brighter by afternoon. Tomorrow, temperatures will be a little higher in the southeast, with the lying snow thawing quite quickly. Another very mild day in the north. Tomorrow's weather. And with the time now at just gone 11 minutes past 12, that's all from BBC1 this evening. Please don't forget that Radio 2 can keep you company throughout the night, and at the moment Brian Matthew is presenting Round Midnight. We hope you've enjoyed our programmes here on 1 this evening and that you'll join us again tomorrow. Now, on behalf of all of us here on BBC1, this is Mark Devlin saying good night.